Good morning. I am happy to be with you to share about Amoris Laetitia. I am doubly happy because your spiritual director is Father Michel Joserudo. Father Giorgio and I entered the seminary together, and I am pleased that until now I can count on him not only as a batchmate, but also as a brother in the priesthood. Now, Amoris Laetitia is the post-synodal apostolic exhortation of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, on love in the family. That title can say it all. First, it is a post-synodal document. That is, it was produced after two assemblies of the Synod of Bishops. The Synod of Bishops is an institution created by Pope St. Paul VI, in order to continue the experience of the Second Vatican Council, in which the bishops of the whole world, church in the whole world, are represented and consulted by the Holy Father himself. He listens to them when it comes to certain matters of great importance for the church and for the world. For example, evangelization, catechesis, the family, the youth, new evangelization. There are also assemblies of the Synod of Bishops that focus on regions in the world. For example, there was a special assembly of the Synod of Bishops on Africa, on Asia, on Europe, on Oceania, on the Americas. Now, Amoris Laetitia was issued after two synods. The first synod was held in 2014, when the question was about the pastoral challenges of the family in the context of evangelization. The second assembly was in 2015 on the vocation and mission of the family in the church and the contemporary world. Mind you, this was not the first synods on the family. Pope St. John Paul II himself called for a synod on the Christian family in 1980. And the year after that, he issued the monumental document Familiaris Consortio. That was 35 years before Amoris Laetitia. Amoris Laetitia builds on Familiaris Consortio. Now, it is a apostolic exhortation. Why is that? Amoris Laetitia, like Familiaris Consortio, was not intended to settle dogmatic questions. It takes into account the teachings of the Church and of Christ himself. It does not call them into question. In fact, the apostolic exhortation draws out the pastoral implications of the teachings of Christ and his church for our time. This is an application of the teachings of Christ. It is a pastoral document. That's why the term is exhortation. The Holy Father exhorts us, admonishes us, encourages us to follow the doctrines of Jesus, to apply the teachings of the church, even though it can be difficult at times, and that even though if we have to discern, even though we have to discuss at length, just to find out how best to apply the teachings of Christ. Now, how are we to read the text? Pope Francis himself recognizes that the document is long. Why? Because he had to consider and discuss many questions, various questions. That's why he does not recommend a rushed reading of the text. Huwag daw tayo magmamadali. He counsels that we read each part patiently and carefully. We may read a document from cover to cover, That's fine. We may also read those parts that are relevant to us at this present moment. For example, for married couples, he recommends starting with chapters 4 and 5. Why? Chapter 4 talks about love in marriage, and chapter 5 talks about love made fruitful. Do those words ring a bell? Don't they refer to the unitive and the procreative aspects of marriage? And it's wonderful. Chapter 4 is structured according to St. Paul's wonderful hymn to love in his 13th chapter of his first letter to the Corinthians. Example here, our daily love. Love is patient. Love is at the service of others. Love is not jealous, not boastful, not rude, generous, not irritable or resentful. Love forgives. Love rejoices with others. Love bears all things. Love believes all things. Love hopes all things. Love endures all things. And he has some very concrete considerations here. For example, the transformation of love. He notes that we are called to love, yes. Now, married couples can also grow old in their relationships, in their marriage. And the love that they feel for each other will be transformed as the body changes, as the situation changes. Very interesting and very practical. Now, chapter 5 is about love made fruitful. It's about welcoming a new life. And he focuses here on the love of a mother and a father. Very interesting. Because, many of our problems today, many of the problems that our young people face today come from the absence of a mother and the absence of a father. Very interesting. And in this chapter also, he considers the role of the elderly in the family. Very, very interesting. Tama-tama. In a few days, in fact, tomorrow, we will have the first World Day of Grandparents and Elderly. Pope Francis announced this as the first fruits of the Amoris Laetitia year. Amoris Laetitia year because it is the 5th anniversary of Amoris Laetitia. Very cool. Providential. Now, another important chapter for parents is this, chapter 7, towards a better education of children. And all this, very, very important. The ethical formation of children. There is a patient realism and also the need for sexual education. Very practical considerations. Now, of course, what is most important is the passing on of the faith. And the passing on of the faith is actually the greatest gift that we can give children. We can give the young people. And in this passing of the faith, it is not only the parents who can do this, but even elders, the grandparents have a great role in this. Among Filipinos, this might also be important because it is difficult to find a family that is not affected by migration. Many of our men and women, fathers and mothers, have to seek employment outside the Philippines, leaving behind their children. And they leave their children behind to the grandparents, to the uncles and the aunts, to the eldest children, like that. So All of this is considered in Amoris Laetitia and affirmed in Amoris Laetitia. Okay. Now, another suggestion, for example, for pastoral ministers, whether priests or lay leaders, is chapter 6, some pastoral perspectives. And it helps them, it helps us go through pastoral ministry, uh, as a way of accompanying couples, families, from the uh, from the preparation for marriage, even up to old age. It's all here. Galing. Perhaps one of the sections that will uh, interest your association, the prayer warriors of the Holy Souls, is this. Numbers 253 to 256. When death makes us feel its sting. Very, very relevant. Okay. The sacrament of holy matrimony and the vocation to build a family is one of the most wonderful elements of Christian life. And the Holy Father counsels proper preparation for this vocation. He even calls for a sort of a novitiate for marriage. Now, what does that mean? We, we know the context in the Philippines. Sometimes the preparation can be focused on the rituals surrounding matrimony, not even the sacrament itself. And then the pre-Cana seminar can be uh, simply a course in which they have to learn many things and not be prepared emotionally, spiritually for the sacrament. Pope Francis also recommends that there be a long-term and a short-term preparation as well as the immediate preparation for marriage. What is the short term? Of course, can be done while they are engaged, no? But there's also a long-term preparation. That is the very experience of being in a family, of being sons and daughters. No? Understanding and learning from their parents how it is to grow up, how it is to be a man, how it is to be a woman, how to respect one another. Okay? uh, how to be responsible, reliable, uh, and also faithful as well as generous. All of this they learn inside the family. In February 2016, the Episcopal Commission on Family and Life gathered all who were in charge of the pre-Cana programs in the Philippines on the diocesan level as well as on the level of national organizations. They listened to Father Francis Gustilo, Salesian priest, who studied the 60 programs, existing programs in the Philippines. They had a workshop and they agreed on these 6 themes that should be in every pre-Cana module in the Philippines. First of all, personhood. This module will tackle on human sexuality, human dignity, and draw inspiration from Pope St. John Paul II's theology of the body. Second, communication is understanding love, the husband and wife relationship. Third, fruitful love. Here we discuss responsible parenthood, natural family planning, and importantly, Christian parenting. Fourth, community, the role of the family in community life, and how to establish a domestic church. Number 5, Christian marriage. Here they discuss the sacrament of marriage itself, the rite of marriage. And then 6, the spirituality of communion, couple spirituality, as we say. Example, When it comes to communication, dialogue is essential in fostering love, of course. Pope Francis himself exhorts couples, take time, quality time. This means being ready to listen patiently and attentively to everything the other person wants to say. It requires the self-discipline of not speaking until the time is right. Do not be rushed. Put aside all your needs and worries and make space. That comes from number 137 of Amoris Laetitia. Another example, when it comes to community, the family as domestic church. The nuclear family needs to interact with the wider family made up of parents, aunts and uncles, cousins, and even neighbors. This greater family may have members who require assistance, or at least companionship and affection, or consolation amid suffering. A good example of the domestic church is the experience of San Isidro Labrador and Maria de la Cabeza. No? So very interesting family in life. From how Isidro started out as an honest and reliable worker who was trusted by his employers, and then how he himself asked the guidance of God in the choice of his wife. How when they got married, they tried to live a Christian marriage, and they they had a child, and then they tried to bring that child up according to God's will, and how their family, their house was a home not only for themselves, but also a place of refuge for the poor. No? They did not turn anyone away, anyone who was in need. The domestic church is a possibility. We see that in the lives of the saints. Now, another thing, that assembly in February 2016 considered the methodologies of pre-Cana. They saw that that pre-Cana was done as lectures, workshops, and some tried the one-on-one modality. Now they realized that the lectures were okay, but the one-on-one approach was more effective. Why? Because those who engaged in the one-on-one methodology established a mentor-mentee relationship, so much so that even after the ceremony, even after the sacrament of matrimony, the mentee couple still were comfortable in approaching their mentor couple whenever they had questions or doubts or even problems. During the pandemic, how was it possible to prepare couples for marriage? Some institutions develop online pre-Cana modules, based of course on the existing modules. But then they were able to craft the module in such a way that it was possible even through electronic means. And so far it works. And although there were some issues that they encountered, they were able to overcome those problems. So we congratulate those who developed the online pre-Cana modules. Some more elements of the spirituality of the family. In number 316 of Amoris Laetitia, Pope Francis says that a positive experience of family communion is a true path to daily sanctification and mystical growth, a means for deeper union with God. The fraternal and communal demands of family life are an incentive to growth in openness of heart and thus to an even fuller encounter with the Lord. This is nourished even by a few moments of prayer every day, not only as individuals, but also and especially as family. Father Patrick Peyton would say, a family that prays together stays together. Indeed, family prayer, number 318, is a special way of expressing and strengthening Paschal faith. Now, this Paschal faith is, of course, uh, nourished through the Eucharist, in which the Eucharist is a sacrament of the new covenant, where Christ's redemptive work is carried out. The close bond between married life and the Eucharist thus becomes all the more clear. For the food of the Eucharist offers the spouses the strength and incentive needed to live the marriage covenant each day as a domestic church. The, the Eucharist as the sacrament of the new covenant, Christ Himself as the new covenant, Christ who offers His life for His church, and that marriage itself is a sacrament because it reflects the love of Christ for His church. It would be good now to discover and discuss briefly three dynamics of the document Amoris Laetitia. First, integration. Second, discernment. And the third, accompaniment. In integration, we derive our inspiration from the conviction that the Church exists as a sacrament of communion between God and humanity and of communion among humanity itself. This means we are all called to conversion, that is, turning to God. Now, that means we are not supposed to present the teaching of Christ and His church about marriage and family as an impossible and unattainable ideal. It is not meant to exclude anyone or to make them feel that they have no part in the kingdom of God. No, the teachings of God about the marriage and family is a wonderful mystery. It is meant to be lived out in joy. It is meant to be practiced and, of course, shared with much conviction. The focus on joy and the beauty of marriage and family recognizes the limitations of human beings. And that's why there is the call to conversion and forgiveness, reconciliation. Problems in the family are to be addressed as soon as possible. Sa Tagalog, wag nang palalain pa hanggang sa magkahiwalay pa. Hindi na kailangan yun. This will also help children mature into responsible adults. Second, discernment. In discernment, we start from the design of God for the family, for marriage. We recognize that some situations may be difficult, even irregular, almost impossible to resolve. And yet, what does Pope Francis call for? For this discernment to happen, the following conditions must necessarily be present: humility, discretion, and love for the Church and her teaching, in a sincere search for God's will, and a desire to make a more perfect response to it. Ganda, no? We are not seeking rationalizations for our own mistakes. We are seeking God's will and the more perfect response to God's will. Yeah. So that's discernment. Okay. And then third, it would be good to recall that in discernment, we are not choosing between good and evil. No, no. We are certainly uh, turning our backs on evil and we are turning towards good. That's what it means to be converted. Now, we are simply choosing between two goods, uh, not good and evil. We are choosing between the good and the better way, like that. Looking for the best way, the more perfect response to God's will. Okay. I hope that's very clear. No? And then third, accompaniment. Here we realize that everyone is in a journey. Not everyone can attain to holiness at the same time tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. No, uh, we we accompany. We walk together with each other, and then we realize that uh, we can walk only gradually, so step by step. Yeah. And this requires much patience and much love. So it's there. Integration, discernment, and accompaniment. At this point, I would like to thank you for inviting me to share about Amoris Laetitia. The document has many more gems that can be food for reflection and action in the future. We hope that we chose those parts that are most relevant to you at this time. I leave out the other elements, particularly those that pertain to extending family bonds in the afterlife. I leave those to Father Jojo. So God bless you, Father Jojo. Now, uh, Pope Francis would catechize the young couples in this general audience this way. He said that in the family, three words should never be absent. Number one, thanks. Number two, sorry. Number three, please. Thank you. Because gratitude is the best way to live. In fact, it seems that we do not thank each other enough in the family. Number two, sorry. We should learn how to apologize, to admit our mistakes, and then to resolve to become better persons. Number three, please. We should learn to respect one another, to treat each other not as objects, but as persons. So, three words: thanks, sorry, and please. Let us continue to pray for one another so that the experience of family life may be a true shepherding in mercy. God bless. Good morning.